What's up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages? It is I, D.H. Thorne. Sorry about that. I do apologize. I was having a little trouble getting the actual thing set up here for some reason. Yes, it could be the retrograde. It definitely could be. So what's everybody doing tonight? I see there's more drama in the community brewing. Bottoming out a little bit. Too loud? All right.
Just a little bit.
Thank you, honey. I'll fix it. Tell me if it sounds all right. It should be a little better. It's probably going to take a minute to come through. Anyway, guys, we'll wait for the volume to stabilize. May have to adjust it a little more. What's up, Tara? All right, I'm being told it sounds good. I got the thumbs up. Sorry about that. I don't have a way to... I probably do have a way to monitor the audio coming in, but that's a couple extra steps to set up that I don't feel like doing. So I just have my beautiful assistant wifey do. Just help me figure out the settings. So again, hi everybody. Hello. Sorry about making you guys wait. Yes, it could be that retrograde, of course. It's always possible. It could also just be that I'm distracted and got other stuff on my mind tonight. But so what's going on, Maximo? How you doing? How you been? So it looks like the usual stuff's going on. We've got drama in the community. We've got drama in the world. And I just feel like hanging out tonight. Keep it simple. I know somebody commented last week, I guess it was, on my other Thor cup. So this time I've got Thor himself as my my compadre, my cup padre. We're going to call him Cup Padre. Cup Padre. What's good, everybody? What's good? What's up, Sam? How you doing? Yeah, so how's cancel culture treating everybody else this month? Everybody making through the endless drama and excitement that's the ever-evolving social sphere of the internet and the general population. Somebody just pointed out you got to read Shadownomicon. That's very fitting for what's going on in the world right now, isn't it? I think that fits a lot. It's probably not a mistake that I become here to do what I do at this time as a Lord of Shadow, so to speak. Thank you, John, for loving that moon. Actually, let me fix that because it's got my curtains in front of it. It's actually just like a cheap little LED light. There, it looks a lot better now. It's actually just a cheap little LED light that I got from Home Depot like 7 years ago, and it's still still looking good actually. LEDs can last a long time, I guess, right? Johan saying trying his best not to bite on their hooks. You're damn right. I've been struggling with that too, man. They make them shiny, don't they? They really do. They make everything shiny. They want to get your goat. They want to get you mad right now. They want to call you names. They want to make you get canceled for dumb shit. Honestly, Lowland, I have no idea. I've never read it myself. Dovakitty, yes, they're pretty much all ready to go. I'm going to be announcing that a little bit sooner, probably very soon. Here's the deal: like my friend, my compadre, and I, my other compadre, not my cup padre, my friend Josh and I are still experimenting with the actual ritual itself to make sure we're getting the proper, we'll say the proper integration in our communities. And so far my community's been pretty quiet as far as I can tell. Of course, I'm not outside experiencing it every day, whereas my friends just had some interesting things go down in a nearby park. So we're going to keep our eyes open. We may not have created powerful enough portals yet, so it could be that it'll be done more officially, of course, for everybody else on the Halloween event, which I will be announcing soon, so that people have time to prepare who want to take part in it. But yeah, that's a good question. I do have the stickers, but I want to get them. I want to try them out a little bit more, if that makes sense, because anybody who uses them, they could potentially have power. I will say one interesting story about it. For those of you who don't know, if you're new to my channel, you don't know what I'm talking about. Pretty soon I'll be announcing an official, I guess official is the right word, a formal public ritual rite that everyone who wants to take part in will be able to take part in some way. even if you are not initiated with the shadow current, you'll still be able to participate in your own way. And what I've got brewing is essentially I'm opening gates in local communities, in my area, in my hometown, nearby, to the shadow people, to try to bring the current, a little bit closer, to kind of rend the veil and make the shadow people a little bit more coterminous with this world, so that we have a little bit more of a grand integration for mankind. And so far it's really just me and one other person that's doing this, and it's probably for the best. This way we keep it safe, that way if anything goes wrong, it's only in our little hometowns, it's not in everybody else's around the world. But essentially what happens is we create portals in the environment and charge them and open them and keep them maintained by basically, what would be the word? The next best thing to viral marketing. It's not really viral marketing, it's viral spellcasting, where we're going to be putting the Legion sigil in the form of stickers, or if you want to put them in chalk, or however you want to put them, all over places where people will see them. Of course, you want to obey the law, because you don't want to get in trouble with the popo right now. But, you put them where you can, and people see them, and if they are struck by them, that means their shadow is probably speaking to them. Their shadow is probably reaching out and saying, hey, pay attention to me. I'm Legion. You know what this is. And the irony is, my son's girlfriend, they were walking around my area today, and my son's girlfriend, she doesn't know what I do. Most of their friends don't know what I do for a living. And essentially, she saw them and was like, I've been seeing these Illuminati stickers all over the place. Because they do, I guess, kind of look like the Eye of Providence. But Johan, my friend, if you're still watching, you know that we've actually started taking to calling it like the inverted Eye of Providence, the Eye of the Profane, perhaps, the Eye of the Shadow, the Eye of Legion. And it's kind of like the shadow of the Eye of Providence, whereas the Eye of Providence is the all-seeing eye of divinity. This is the all-seeing eye of shadow, the shadow side of that idea. And so I've been placing them, several dozen of them in the area. And yeah, I see that too. People, you guys are eager for my upcoming stuff. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But I want to make sure things are ready before I release things and do things. But I do like to keep the things warm. I do like to have people know, kind of like when grandma's baking cookies, you want to smell them before you eat them, right? But yeah, so the idea is I place these stickers around, and this will charge the connected objects, the objects that I'm using as the functional geometry of the gate, we'll say. And these things will open and hold open these gates as they're observed, and it can probably take a little time for it to fully manifest the results, because none of this stuff happens overnight, right? But that is the idea. And so when I'm ready to publish something, is I don't want to just say, here, take these stickers, right? Some of you, that's all you're going to be able to do, because you don't have the skill, you're not initiated with the shadows. If you're initiated with the shadows, if you feel comfortable working with them, you've used my book, or you have already a lifetime relationship with them, then that'll be a different story. You can absolutely do it that way. So, but I will be releasing a write-up probably within the next couple weeks to a month or so, definitely by early September. I will have a write-up, a couple of pages, a PDF that I will be putting on my website, and of course linking in videos and stuff so you guys can take part. So I got someone, Zion, what's up? No, you didn't say senpai. I'm disappointed now. Thank you, Zion. I appreciate the love. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you. Dice Controller asks, DH, does your demon protection ritual for hire allow the child to communicate with the entity? That, if we're talking about what I think we're talking about, the more complete ritual, that depends entirely on the individual. When I perform the ritual for you, I'm performing the pact work. I'm performing the ritual of calling the spirit, communicating with it on your behalf. The rest of it's up to you guys. So if you do try to hire me for that, for a full ritual like that, I do require a consultation, because I want to make sure that it's something I can intervene with. I don't like to just do it, whereas my candlework spells are a little different. because it's a more subtle shift of energy. I'm just putting an intention out through a candle, and I'm not making myself responsible with the spirit for the outcome, so to say. I'm not trying to, how do I put this? Put myself on the line for the spiritual benefit that's involved. That's why I often tell people, if you want to work with stuff, you're better off doing it yourself and only using me as an example or asking me for a consultation to help you. But if you feel strongly, either because you think I'm much more professional or this or that or whatever your reasoning is, like, thank you, because you like the way I do rituals, then that you made me jump. Did anybody see me jump? I don't know if we should. Thank you, honey. But anyway, yeah, so that is why I don't like to necessarily just do a ritual for money. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. I mean, let me be honest with you. Geoff Dion says, what's up, DH? I was wondering if you have any gnosis in regards to dinosaurs. Ooh, spirits associated with them or that era in time, also Dinobones. I wish I had a really good answer for you, because that does sound exciting and interesting. I will say the closest I will come is that Lovecraftian Old Ones current, that really primordial energy that you get off of Kambaba Jasper. Using that in ritual to ancient entities can really give you a strong connection to that stuff, because you're dealing with a fossil. Anytime you're dealing with a fossil, you're dealing with the remains, obviously, of a being. That being is most likely long gone in terms of its egregoric self, so you'd more likely be contacting, I guess you'd maybe call it the, like the group egregore of history in a way. I mean, I'm not even sure. That's like beyond what I would consider. You'll notice I mostly stick to human or human anthropomorphized entities, mostly, or modern animal spirits. Yeah, so that's kind of a tough question. I would say it's interesting. I've had some people come to me with, that far out kind of theory that, obviously dinosaurs never left. I mean, they're birds now. They evolved into birds. Of course, a lot of them died out during the calamity that killed most of them off at the end of the Jurassic or Cretaceous or whatever it was. But, the asteroid impact or whatever it happened to be. But it's entirely possible that they walk among us as humanoids. I don't personally buy into that, but if someone came to me with proof, I wouldn't slip my wrists and say, holy shit, it can't be true. I'd be like, fucking figures, doesn't it? So it wouldn't be, you know what I'm saying? It wouldn't be that far off for me to understand and believe. But yeah, that's probably where I'll leave that. I think that's an interesting subject. Maybe that would be a good way to maybe contact that draconic energy. Maybe that is the ultimate source of that draconic energy. Somewhere in our racial memory, we remember dragons, dinosaurs. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe in our DNA, okay, is that racial memory going back to before even humanity was here. Yeah, they died from smoking. Yeah, right. No, you're not that late, adversarial self. We've really just been kind of BSing. This is mostly a BS Q&A today. I don't really have a main topic, so you didn't miss much except the hellos and so on. Let's see. Dice Controller says, so you don't have to communicate and it still protects. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But I would suggest anytime, like if I create a pact with you with a spirit for protection, you've got your own end of the bargain to maintain. Depending upon the spirit, it will either be just silent protection and you're paying for a blessing, essentially, a powerful blessing. You're paying for the ritual itself to be performed. But you've got to maintain that relationship. With regards to spirits like President Malphas, who is... Alright, I don't know if I like that drum. With regards to spirits like President Malphas, now it's going to be funny. You guys are going to do that just to hear me jump. With regards to President Malphas, I actually have... My dog's hiding. She just ran over here. She's scared. She thinks it's thunder. With regards to President Malphas, my family, we have a sigil of him that was used in that initial calling with him that is hidden in our home. And so long as no one ever sees it, we're protected, essentially. It's meant to be secret and hidden. I don't even know where it is. My wife does, and she's got it hidden somewhere. And hopefully I never find it. Thorne bristles again. Woo! Jam Apocalypse, thank you for no question. You just support for my top-notch content. Thank you, JM. I appreciate that. That is really appreciated. I can't begin to tell you. The drum scared dice. All right, no more drum, honey. Get a bell. You know what? Go get the thing in the bedroom. Get the that drum makes me jump every time. I think we should use the. I think Coetting's right. The singing bell is a much better option. I think we should go with that. But yeah. So I mean, it's going back to dinosaurs for a moment. Dinosaurs strike me as that draconic energy a little bit, obviously, for obvious reasons. I don't know if that's fair, but it comes to me as that. That could be the literal primordial dragon of our origin, in a way. I mean, but it could also be the dragon that is, so much more. It could be so much more than that. Yeah, the thing from the bedroom. Loiter says, get 2 more drums. Get the horn. I got this horn I got that's a whatchamacallit. Oh, it's like the kind of horn you'd see like a Viking or something using. It's like cut at the end. And I could barely play it. I don't think my wife could even try. It would just sound like she's like spitting into a bowl. But all right, hopefully this won't make me jump as much. I think she got it. Yeah, bang it and make it sing every time someone donates. That's better. That's still going to make me jump. That is still going to make me jump. But yeah. The drums of the drum of jump scares is what I would call them. Yeah, that's a good one. It's like in D&D when you got to give things goofy names, right? John asks, what's the best way to invoke a regular spirit, non-angelic, non-demonic? Best way or easiest or personalized? That's kind of like the 3 different options. The best way is always going to be personal to you, so we can reduce it down to 2. So personalized or my favorite, or with my limited experience working with entities that are not those 2 and are not the shadow people personally. Say, for example, when I kind of accidentally invoked that spirit that I talked about in my blog. By the way, if you want to read my blog, it's www.mindtheshadows.com, and I've got a lot going on there. I would go with what's my favorite personal way? All right, that's better. My favorite personal way is, to be honest, you're not going to think it's that amazing. I would literally just focus my mind on their memory, and I would use their memory to create, if it's a person we're talking about, to create that avatar puppet that a spirit animates, and then trust my intuition to work and roll with it. If it is not someone I knew, then by a similar token, I would use my imagination to once again create that avatar for them to animate in my consciousness. And that doesn't require that much on my end. I have a lot of experience with hypnotic induction on myself and going into trances. So for me, as a medium, it's just a simple matter of just trancing out, meditating, listening to some music, maybe some binaural beats if I'm feeling a little struggle with trying, getting down to that state, and just imagining that form, and almost like a daydream, except the daydream takes on a different energy. It's one thing to have a daydream where you're like imagining like spaceships flying overhead and all this kind of good stuff, but it's another thing to have it be, animated and have a person within it, to be something that is much more obvious, like it's got a personality to it, and it'll take on a life of its own. In fact, I've found that I've got to roll with it, and the more I roll with it, the stronger it will be. Family member, then definitely go with memory. Definitely go with memory. Absolutely go with memory. Get a photograph. I mean, this is what is a, when you go to any other spiritualist or religious person's home, they have often a shrine to people, places, things. What is an altar if not a shrine to a spirit or a religion or a path? In the same token, get a photograph if you have one, or the name, or some kind of symbol that is strongly related to them. If you have an object that was possessed by them, even better. If you have bodily remains of some kind, like some people have like locks of hair of their dead grandma and all that, that would be the way to go. You know, use something that is strongly sympathetic to them as an object if possible. Photographs are great, all that kind of good stuff. If they owned a mirror, okay, that mirror, if they gazed into that mirror for a long time, it's captured something of them in it, trust me. And you can sometimes see them in that mirror even when they're not alive anymore. Ashes are great. Ashes are definitely good to use. So sit down and take those things and use them as your connection tool, as you would a sigil. Meditate, imagine them still being alive, and ask them what you would want to know. The toughest part about that is trusting what you get and not second guessing yourself, because sometimes if it's a really personal and important question, something that you're emotionally attached to, it can be very difficult to get what you feel is a reliable answer, because you're going to want to hear what you want to hear, and you may imagine them telling you something that fits what you stereotypically think you should hear. That's the hardest part. And that is why in a lot of cases I do occasionally also count on mediums, objects and things like tarot cards. Things like that make for excellent, when you're feeling like you can't give yourself an honest answer, grab your tarot cards, grab whatever you use as your medium device, and let that guide you. So, all right, I got two more. My wife rang the bell twice. I should tell her, only ring it when I'm ready for it. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to be a pain in the ass. Adversarial Self asks a very good question. Could dead planets like Mars have spiritual inhabitants? This kind of a question goes in a lot of different directions. On the one hand, we as human beings have personified them so long. The real question is, whatever spirit it has, is it what was once there? Or is it something we've created and placed there with our collective consciousness? Has humanity created egregores of Mars, Jupiter, Saturn? Do these planets actually have that character? Now, I am of the mind that celestial bodies, being large centers of mass, probably have a consciousness, just like we do, except it's not animated as we are. It's probably the focus of some spiritual entity. I have almost no doubt about it. And that energy, just like the Earth Mother, like Gaia, there's a life force to this planet you can tap into. You can feel it. Most people can feel it. Even the people who don't think they can feel anything, they feel this connection to nature, right? Almost everybody. And even the people who don't, give them a week in the right place, they will. So, what are we talking about then when we're talking about the spirits? Are we talking about the spirits of beings that lived there? Are we talking about whatever lived on Mars, maybe, in the past? I think it was probably inhabited. In fact, one of my old theories, when I was a kid, working with Andreas when he was still alive, was past life regression. And one of the theories we had was that between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter, there was another planet that once had a planet not unlike Mars, may have been Mars, that orbited this larger gas world. And this Martian world was once home to a lot of draconic energy, we'll put it that way, without going into the story. Because the story was very anime, right? The story was very much like what my imagination would do with a story I heard as a kid, you know what I mean? Like, here's the thing about gnosis like that. Your imagination will fill in blanks, and it will steer things, just like a dream. It will steer things into things that you can recognize. And if you don't have a word for something, it'll grab the closest approximation and symbol. So whatever was in this past life had a lot to do with draconic energy. I saw dragons, I was with dragons, I was this and that. But this was one of those things where I don't like to bank on it, because it's so far out there that if I did, I feel like I was making shit up to you. Even though I know it was a personal experience that I believed at the time, I wouldn't feel confident saying, this is what I think actually happened in a past life. I don't feel that. I feel that whatever was going on with those memories was the symbolic energy of those memories coming through as this story. In that context, I would share it, but I wouldn't share it as this is what was. So take that for what it's worth. Now, what about, planets, what is it, Enceladus and what's the other one? Not Titan, although they're thinking maybe Titan too. Enceladus, I think, is the one that they really think has life now, probably. But there's another one. I think one's around Saturn, one's around Jupiter. Where do we go with that? How come nobody's felt it before? Or maybe we do. Maybe that's why so many of us firmly believe that we're not alone in the universe. We just can't figure out what it is because it's like sea creatures living under the ice, perhaps. Maybe. All right, Catonic Tonic, my brother, says, you mentioned before that Yahweh is shackled to his own faith. What would happen if he were given liberation energy? Part of that shackling is his own will, I think. That's a good question. I mean, I'm not sure if that could be done. Is that what is meant to happen in a long enough timeline? The unshackling of the Yahweh current, is that possible? I think that people make the mistake of thinking the Yahweh current is really monolithic because it's not. There's a lot of people who practice Christianity on some level, Judaism on some level, Islam on some level that doesn't fit with that overarching, ideology, that overarching limitation. And there's people who interpret the Bible their own way, and it works for them. So I think in a way people have been feeding a liberating energy to that spirit for a long time. But I don't think that that spirit is free by the same token. But I do think that it likes being in that position. It likes the prayer energy. It likes that force feeding of prayer. It wants to be. It's a very jealous being, that I know. Even from within its own sphere. It is one of its archetypes is paternal jealousy. It's shown throughout the book. It's not something that's made up. It's shown in all the various actions that are attributed to it. And even if it wasn't that way, that's what it is now. And so it kind of probably would prefer to be in that kind of, and I'm just guessing here. I don't talk to that spirit, but I will admit that I've had some inklings to reach back out to it some more than I used to try to understand a little better. But I got to be wary of the trap. I don't want to fall into that trap. So what would happen? What would happen indeed? The only thing I would really go back to is to refer to what I've said before about, a Luciferian's not here to save the world but themselves. And if by saving myself that means I have to do something about the world, that's a different story. But is it my place and my power to do so? How do we set Yahweh free? If Yahweh is at any kind of mercy to human faith and prayer, if Yahweh is in any way at the mercy of these people, the religious leaders of the world who set the current in the direction it goes, as above, so below, as below, so above, right? How do we free him then? We have to do something to those who are keeping that spirit enchained. But the question is, do we need to or want to? Is it really just? Is it really necessary? Is it really for us to do it? If it's for you to do, then do it. There's a lot of people who work against the Christian church, Islam, Judaism. There's a lot of people who see those monolithic religions. And they target them for various reasons. And I'm sure every religion has that. I know ours does, if you'd even call it a religion. I know we are targeted constantly. This is why I say that all of this conflict in the spiritual realm is more like pressure density pushing each other out of the way. I don't think they're at war. I don't think they fight. I don't think Yahweh wants to be free in the same way you and I would want to be free. That's my take on it. But I do think that a part of me, when I saw that, a part of me was kind of vindictively happy, and a part of me felt pity, and a part of me felt empathy. It was a very complex feeling, and I can't wait to write about it in the book that I'm doing. I think that'll be something else. That's another book I'm working on. That's going to take a little longer. All right, let me scroll down a little bit. I missed a whole bunch of people here. Brent says he was watching the Black Girl of Lucifer. Yep. Do not quote the remote viewer's program's findings. Advice for doing shadow work with Lucifer. It's a lot easier than the shadow people, but it's not necessarily going to help you as much by itself. They're all interrelated. If you're working with the shadow people, that's like sink or swim. That's being thrown to the wolves and coming out on top. Lucifer is a light that casts light on those shadows. I think his way is definitely a little bit easier in the sense that you will be confronted by your shadow, but it won't be manifesting the same way. You won't be confronted with it as conflict. Lucifer demands, in his own way, for us to be honest with ourselves. A lot of people say Lucifer is the father of lies and all this kind of shit. In reality, he loathes lying. Lucifer, if he does deceive you, deceives you with truth. That's always been the Christian idea. Because he doesn't have to lie. We're full of these problems. Again, go to my blog, www.mindtheshadows.com. You'll see my latest entry was on guilt. I talk a lot about one of the tricks that the world uses on you. But that's not really Lucifer's trick. Lucifer sets you free from guilt. And to be free of guilt, you have to fully integrate those shadows as best you can. And you'll never fully do it in this lifetime, I promise you. You will always have some lingering shadow, as it should be. Because to be afraid of having a shadow is its own shadow. It's just like the sense of attachment from Eastern philosophy. If you try to rid yourself of attachment, you have to ask yourself the honest question, why am I trying to be rid of attachment? Isn't that just another form of attachment? Am I not, by trying to get rid of my shadow, being at the mercy of some other kind of shadow? That's up for you, personally, I think, to really answer, but I know my answer is the more I fight my shadow, the more it wins, the more I can't actually achieve. The more I give in to my shadow, but maintain control by directing it instead of trying to stop it or encourage it, the better off I am. This applies to the simple shadows or, like the simple things. I have a bad habit, I have a fear, I have a this, to the really bad things that some people do. You cannot make certain people stop being sick, but you can help them to live despite it. Just like we were talking about Mercury in retrograde right off the bat. Mercury in Gatorade sounds so much better to me. We're talking about Mercury in Gatorade, and someone said, very rightfully, as I've pointed out before as well, as so many others have, learn to make that Mercury in retrograde work for you. It's not always that simple, but you can do that. And in the same way, you can make your shadow work for you. Instead of trying to destroy your shadow, turn that shadow into a tool. If you've got a shadow that makes you a manipulative bastard, well, you don't like how you're acting as a manipulative bastard, but you can't help yourself, steer that into a benevolent kind of cause so you don't feel that way about it. Steer it into something that benefits yourself in a way that you don't feel that guilt about. Sam says, I've heard that both Mars and Venus were both Earth-like. I believe so, yeah. I don't know about inhabited by humans. Humans, the evidence for humans doesn't go back far enough for that to be true. But my personal theory on human origin, if science is to be accepted, I don't like to conflict with science unless it's like they haven't decided yet. I don't like to, how do I put this? I don't like to have a closed mind. I don't like to say science says, so therefore nothing like this can happen. But I don't like to say science is wrong. Because science has been proven, at least on the mundane level, for the most part, within a very high degree of satisfaction. They call it sigma. If they have a very high sigma of confidence, then they don't It might as well be proven fact, in other words. There is nothing that is proven fact. We'll put it that way. Nothing is proven fact, but in the scientific method, something that's proven fact is not something I want to go head-to-head against. At least not lightly. And if I do, it's got to be, I see the controversy, I see the, I see that there is politics or something going on that is making it polluted. That's always been the case, though. And in fact, everything that we think we know, you could trace to there being a political argument somewhere about it. There was a time when science tried to destroy metaphysics but couldn't. And they kind of acquiesced and said, well, metaphysics is still a study that has some merit, but they don't consider it part of the sciences anymore. So they just kind of discount it completely. They say, yeah, you guys go over there and do your little fancy Platonian, philosophy and stuff. We're going to stick with the science of moving numbers, because that's really what it is. They're really mathematicians with good telescopes, and nothing wrong with it. It's a functional system. Our computers, everything we're doing right now relies on that. But that doesn't mean it answers fundamental questions about existence and the things below those numbers. A mathematician, scientist will tell you everything is quantum. Well, what is quantum? Oh, well, it's a random this and that. So there's numbers floating around in space? No, it's not numbers. What is it? Well, it's fields of quantum uncertainty. What is a field? I don't know. They can't answer what that is. I love my buddy Theoria Apophasis. He makes such a good point with that. He'd probably hate everything I do, but I love his kind of way, right? How do I put that? I don't know if I would ever get along with him personally, but he entertains the living shit out of me. I love where he comes from. But he points out very well that science can't explain exactly what a field is. It can say, well, a field is an electron field and this kind of field, and we don't know, but they don't know what a field really is. But there may be answers to that they won't accept because they sound goofy. So, going back to your thing about humanity is just the latest iteration of life, and it's not even the latest. It is the most intellectually centered form of life on this planet. It's not even the most advanced, let's be honest. I don't think you can have the most advanced. I think there's the most adapted, something to be the most effective, the most survival prone, but more advanced is such a stupid word. Such a stupid concept for evolution. Oh, it's more advanced because it's been here for longer. Bullshit. You're not more advanced than a dinosaur. You're just acclimated to the world you live in better than they would be if they came here today. But if you were teleported back to their time, you'd be shit out of luck. You probably couldn't even breathe the air. How are you more advanced? No, you're adapted. And what you're adapted from, while it's a very interesting subject, and I do want to get to the bottom of it, the question never really has an answer, because you go back far enough, we all come from whatever the start of the universe was, whatever that may be. You want to talk about, the kalpas, you want to talk about that, you want to talk about big bangs, you want to talk about, what are we talking about? Well, that's what you are, that's your origin, that's where you come from. Everything in the middle is just chapters in a story, and you don't need to read them all to know who you are now. It helps, but you don't need to. Just like video games, some video games start on chapter 2, they start on the second edition, they start on like Mass Effect 2, you don't have to play Mass Effect 1 to get Mass Effect 2. It helps, but you don't have to. So, where was the origin of humans? I kind of like, and I know it's been given a lot of flack, but I like the aquatic ape theory, and I do believe that if that is true, that explains a lot of the Sumerian lore, a lot of humans' tendency to find a certain kind of identification as the gods being aquatic in a lot of ways, the further back we go. And, when we tie this into the Atlantean theory, this also explains the Sumerian, ideas a lot as well. The Great Flood, the destruction of their once home, this flood that destroyed their world, the same flood that wipes out Atlantis and so on. A very aquatic people. For whatever reason, it doesn't mean that Atlantis was populated with amphibious people, mind you. I don't mean that, like in the pop culture where they're living underwater and they're mermaids. I don't mean that. I mean, look up the aquatic ape hypothesis. And a lot of anthropologists and such think it's bullshit, but it's still got some merit in my opinion. It shouldn't be thrown out completely. I think we need to keep looking at it. I think it does explain a lot of things. But science would tell you just because it explains something doesn't mean that's the case. We could explain things a lot of different ways that aren't true. In a way, that's what I'm guilty of as an occultist. Part of what I'm doing, unfortunately, requires that kind of mentality. I have to look at a spiritual question based on what I know of metaphysics, what I believe of metaphysics, and then figure out how it fits. And if I think that's how it fits, because it's not a scientific method like regular science, because all I can go with is what works for me, on some level, all it is a kind of pseudoscience. I fully admit that. I'm one of the probably few who would, but it's the truth. That doesn't mean it's not real. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's what I believe. It's what I believe in. You know, I really hate when pseudoscientists try to act like they're doing the same thing as a scientist is, knowing full well they're not. You know, I've always stood on that hill, and I would die on that hill. I don't think we should be that way. I think we have to admit. Yeah, Sam, in a way, you know, well, Yahweh says there was a goddess that ruled alongside with Yahweh. Yahweh, I've identified as a brother to Baal Hadad, but from a slightly different culture. Don't forget my understanding, and there's a guy, Arwayne Steiger, does a really great video series about Baal, and I recommend it highly if you can find it. It shouldn't be hard to find. Just look up R. Wayne, Wayne, and then Steiger, Stieger, I believe, and look up his information about Baal. It's about 3.5 hours of good shit. It's amazing, and I think if it's not 100% accurate, it's accurate enough that I appreciate it. But his whole point was, you know, you have the ancient Israelites, the ancient Jews, were people who were kind of a cult living in the Canaanite culture, and they were part of that culture. They weren't separate so much as they were a part. Like they were the nomadic version of that. And they had many of the same gods. If you go back far enough, the ancient Jews had a shrine to Baal as well as Yahweh. And they were seen as brothers. They're all part of the Elohim, the El being the sons of El, Elohim, and of course, Asherah. So that could be, you know, is El Yahweh? No, I don't think so. I don't feel that way. You know, I don't think I think they've been conflated. I think the Jews said, "Oh, well, it's really Yahweh, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh, one of the children." Yeah, okay. It's all kind of confusing. And so my own discussion of Yahweh's history is maybe for another time. Maybe for another time. I want to make sure I have my ducks in a row, because I don't, you know, when we're talking about history, I can tell you about what I feel, and I don't want to be like, Thorne, you're 100% wrong because this article says that they found. I want to be careful, because that's not my, you know, if you want someone, by the way, White-Winged Soul, if you want someone who's really good at that kind of research, look at like Bill Duvendak, look at Timothy from Become a Living God. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. Look at Arwayne Steiger. These guys, they're researchers extraordinaire. They know what they're doing. All right, let me go down. My wife gonged the bell. Rachel Frederick. Is that Frederick von Frankenstein? No, I'm kidding. Are the LBRP and the Greater Hexagram Pantheon specific? What are some non-Pantheon banishing cleansing rituals? Okay, good question. Very, very interesting answer and question at the same time. The LBRP, which I don't have as much historical knowledge of as I probably should, but in reading that, when I read what it's doing, what is it doing? It is asserting yourself as a stand-in for God. You are essentially saying, I am. You're saying, I am the creator being of this space. And you're calling upon the angels that serve the Most High to serve you. Because ultimately, the Most High is you. You are the Most High, except you're a fragment. You're a figment of the Most High's imagination. And as such, your general ability to control reality is limited to your belief. It's limited to your time-space bubble of belief, if you will. By doing the LBRP, you are cleansing your mind, your consciousness, your environment of ideas, of entities, of influences that would challenge that position as a creator being, as the Most High. Armed with that knowledge, you can ultimately Whatever your religious belief is, you can exchange and rename everything. If someone doesn't like working with the angels or talking about Yahweh or Tetragrammaton or whatever it would be, whatever you're talking about, you can change that to anything you want. The question is, you've got to believe in it. You've got to believe it. Now, I personally do not see a creator being other than myself in the highest form. So my own personal method, you can find it in Become the Maelstrom. If you don't own it, I recommend it. It's my first book, but a lot of people like it. Towards the end, near the pathworking section, which is still got a lot of material left in it, near the end, one of the first things I give you is the Align and Clear ritual. It's a ritual I used to use a lot. I've modified it a lot. I use simplified versions. Sometimes you catch me doing pieces of it. But it is just a suggested idea. You're meant to take that idea and understand the movements you're doing, and it is non-denominational. It's agnostic, which means you can insert whatever deity in there you want, but preferably you are meant to insert yourself as a deity. If you're not ready for that experience, don't do it. If you're not ready for that, call upon a spirit which you feel protected by, that you feel will guide you. Absolutely acceptable. Take your time, though. As for some of these others, I can't speak to them. I don't know. Yeah, there's also a lot of, Brent points out, there's a lot of videos on that subject too. And, you know, people are going to have a lot of different perspectives on it. Dice Controller says, does, yeah, yeah, Jehovah, however they like to say it. I don't work with that stuff, man. You know, there's a lot of things that people discover that are not for everybody. If someone is dwelling, see, I kind of lean towards the chaos magic perspective. Someone who believes strongly in a current. This is why I often recommend that people learn to translate from one current to another as best they can. Pick a couple that you feel comfortable with and learn to work within all of them. Be eclectic, in other words. Don't be afraid to be eclectic. People who were born and raised in a highly Christian or Abrahamic faith, Islam, Judaism, something like that, who truly believe, because they've been trained since a young age to believe that that current is more valid than others, perhaps, even though they might intellectually know, hey, Samaria predates this stuff by thousands of years. Even though they may intellectually know that, they still believe that Judeo-Christian current more. For them, the best option is to use that current as it works for them. Me, I only have a tiny little fragment of that belief that remains. It's very small. I no longer believe in the Yahweh current, in the Abrahamist current. I believe that a lot of that stuff is kind of repackaged old belief, restructured. And it may have been guided a little bit by spiritual forces. I don't deny that's possible. I'm not saying Yahweh doesn't guide people. I'm not saying that the angels don't work for different spirits, including Yahweh. And when I say that I've seen Yahweh enchained in the infernal realms, that doesn't mean he's not still a god of his own heaven at the same time. There's an aspect of Yahweh that is enchained, we'll say. But there's also an aspect of Yahweh that is enthroned. And some might even argue that that enchained version of Yahweh is Satan. Some could make that argument. There are a lot of people who say that there is only one God and both sides are him. And they're really talking about, what, Gnosticism, Source, Hermeticism? What are they talking about? It's the same kind of theory. You know, here's the thing. There's truth, which is that very fundamental thing of metaphysics that I'm always harping on. And everything else is an emanation of your own imagination, so to speak. Because you are that source. So all of this stuff as emanation has worth and value. It all teaches different lessons. We are getting hung up. And one of the things I don't like doing, but it's fun, so I do it anyway. I shouldn't say I don't like doing it, but one of the things I regret doing occasionally is getting too caught up in the mythology side. Mythology is there to inspire you, but you are meant, and of course it's factual in a lot of cases, that is, certain cultures had certain beliefs. It's not healthy, I don't think, to completely run in the face of those mythologies. For example, it wouldn't be a good idea to say that Jupiter was the god of farts. Okay, I know how ridiculous that sounds, but that's my point. You want to stick with what cultures have identified because they have egregoric energy to them. It's not as important to be 100% historically accurate as it is to be energetically accurate, at least for magical purposes. This is why I don't call myself an anthropologist or a mythological researcher. I am not the same as Joseph Campbell, although I use a lot of what he did. And Joseph Campbell's work is really awesome, guys. I highly recommend you look him up. Awesome stuff. He died a while ago, so don't expect any new stuff. But the older stuff is glorious. The way he syncretized, the way he found the connections. Comparative religion, I think, is what he pioneered. And what he found when he compared all these things were the greater truths beneath. The truths of humanity, usually. I'm not even sure what he personally believed, except in that human interpretation of all of these things. The commonality, the Jungian archetypes behind it all. And I think that was one of the most mature things humanity has done spiritually in a long time. What we do a little bit as occultists, as magicians, as demonolators, is I think we go back and we tend to miss. I think a lot of us are classical in nature, if that makes sense. Maybe we're a little sick of that postmodern vibe where the old gods are dead. And a part of us really wants to return to that feeling. And so we go back and we identify these gods, demons, whatever. And we rationalize not so much how they could be real, because I don't doubt that they're real, but we rationalize how they could have been believed. We rationalize what they would have looked like, why they would have looked that way. Because we want to relate to them, because there's a gap in our history. For thousands of years, these gods evolved alongside of man. In other words, their egregore changed and shifted with the cultures that they were part of. As the culture shifted, the god changed. Sometimes completely. Sometimes getting a new name. Sometimes as armies conquered one another, the purpose of that deity changes from good to evil. And as someone pointed out rightfully in one of my old streams, the ancients didn't see the gods as good or evil, but rather as forces of nature that could be both. But over time, we've lost our connection to a lot of that. Our modern era, because of the monolithic, pantheistic, Christian, Abrahamic currents, at least in the West, mind you. If you go elsewhere, it's not as bad. But in the West, we've lost a connection to spirit, as the prophecy of Thoth predicts. We've lost that connection. We're desperate for that connection to the old ones again. All right, let me see. Some people are asking some extra questions. I just wanted to... Oh, someone pointed out, yeah, the hero with 1,000 faces, absolutely. Which is a lot like the Eternal Champion from Michael Moorcock, I suppose. Apparently someone asked, White Guy Da Vinci asked, desires to know what is in the background. I assume you're talking about my... Let me help you out a little bit. My tapestry? That is a tapestry that I sell on Teespring. So if you go in the description of this or any of my other videos, you'll see a link to my Teespring. And actually, I don't know if this fabric one does, but I know the canvas one actually is fluorescent. That is, if you hold the black light over it, it fucking shines awesome. It looks really cool under a black light. So if you want one that'll look good under the black light, you can do that. Good night, Jennifer. Thanks for coming. No, Lowland, I don't think heaven's exactly a trap. I think that it's just another... There's no such... I don't think there's anything really as a trap. You know, what would a trap be? Because what you're implying there is that there is a better outcome for us. My perspective is that everything that you are is exactly what you want it to be. There is no flaw. None. You are not flawed. Yeah, Jen, you can actually... I do have them in Teespring. You can actually get my Trinity as a fabric circle that you can use. The biggest one, the 10, I forget how many feet it is, but it's like 108 inches or 109 inches by something. It's just big enough that you can sit inside if you wanted. If you get the smaller one, you can put it on a bigger table, a bigger circular table, and it should work out. It might have to be like a kitchen table or something, but it would work perfectly. So, well, going back to what I was saying, I don't believe, personally, in the idea of spiritual traps. I don't believe in the idea of punishment. I don't believe in the idea of doing anything other than what is in your best interest, because I think you always are. What you are experiencing as a trap is your ego suffering, because your ego has its own ideas, because you think your ego matters. You think your ego is you. And that creates a whole other trap in its own right, because then you have people who will declare that they must destroy and kill their ego. That's bullshit. I mean, for them it might be true, I guess, but it's bullshit. The desire to destroy your ego is just as egoistic as the desire to be egotistical. There's no difference. So the desire to avoid heaven is just as big a trap as it would be to go to one. There is no such thing as a trap. There is what you are. You are the Tao. You are the source. Everything that manifests within and without you. You are the manifestation. And that means heaven as well. Is heaven a trap? No. Is the feeling that you must go to a heaven a trap? I think it's kind of distracting. I don't think it's a trap. I don't even think it's that much of a distraction. I think that no matter how bad your life is, no matter how bad your experience is, the worst thing you can do is feel like you're trapped. The worst thing you can do is to feel like you have no choice, or to feel like you're a victim. Again, go to my blog, www.mindtheshadows.com. The latest blog post is all about guilt, and that has got a big piece of the answer for you. A very big one. Sam asks, where can I get a staff like that? You're going to have to time travel back to probably the late 90s, if I remember correctly. Probably about 96, 97, something like that. And go to the Tuxedo Ren Fair in New York. You're going to have to push me out of the way and grab it from the market stall where I bought it and decorate it accordingly. Because as far as I know, I'm sure there's others like it. This was made at a Ren Fair. Basically, there was a stall at a Ren Fair, and they were wizard staffs, and they were real high quality ones. Nice hickory wood, I guess. Pretty sure it's hickory. Feels like hickory. Nice hickory wood with various fittings on the tip. This one had a glass cabochon, or whatever it would be called, a glass, fake crystal. I mean, let's not forget, glass in ancient times was sacred too. So it's not like I should say just glass. It looked like actually blown glass, so maybe it was pretty nice, but I didn't like the way it looked. It looked gaudy, so I removed the glass and I put an actual piece of obsidian in there, an obsidian sphere. It was a hell of a time trying to find one that would fit, but I did find one. And of course the brass got fitted by me. I just hammered it with a rubber mallet. And then I stained it, and I have been gradually carving in sigils, sometimes unfortunately not as cleanly as I could, but carving in sigils of spirits that I work with. And it used to be about 6 foot tall. Now this part just comes up to my armpit just about. So it's kind of like a Joe staff, for those of you who know that kind of martial arts. It's a good walking stick. And it's, I don't know, it's kind of tied for my favorite staff with the other one that I did a video about. This one in some ways feels better. It's got more, I could use this for more. If I was jumped on the road, ding, this would get the job done. The other one might break. This one would get the job done. Yeah, don't forget, guys, if you want to ask me a question directly, it does help if you give me your question in bold text, or highlight my name as Brent just showed, or there's always super chat. Just saying, but no requirement. We got a troll. Who's my troll? We have another troll. Who's the troll? I'll let my wife take care of the trolls tonight if she's watching. If we got a troll, make them go away. DH, do I believe in karma? Absolutely, just probably not the way you think, Juliana. Karma is not what most Westerners think it is. I'm not even sure I've got the correct, Eastern philosophical perspective of it, but the way I understand karma, I believe, is closer to what the truth of it was historically. Most Westerners think karma is like justice. They think it's some kind of scale. It's some kind of tit for tat that the universe performs. That if I do something wrong, I get repaid for that somehow. Someone's warning us if left-hand path. Yeah, I don't know. If people are just making jokes, I don't care that much. I mean, I don't really care. Why would I care? If it's an honest joke, I mean, you can make fun of my staff that way. That's fine. Was there something else? If it's just saying, hey, this is my staff, there are many like it, that's... yeah, thank you, honey. Thank you. Because I wasn't reading, so I trust my wife to judge. Don't worry about it. I'm assuming that's Becca. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't be too sensitive, guys. That's my job. But let me get more to that answer, Juliana. Let me get more to the answer, okay? If I can, because it's a broad topic in a way. The concept of karma relies upon the understanding that you are, I'm going to repeat myself 1,000 times, you are source, you are the origin, you are consciousness, source consciousness, personified. Everything that happens to you is your own doing. The good, the bad, and in between. When you are walking in a certain direction, you're going to go to a certain place. If I am walking along the road and there's a boulder in the road and I don't look where I'm going, I'm going to trip over it and it's going to hurt my foot. Now, that would be karma in its own way. Then if I turn around in anger and charge at the rock with the intention to kick it, thinking it's not that big a stone, maybe I'll kick it away, maybe I'll, whatever. But it's really a giant boulder that's wedged deep in the ground, and I go to kick it with everything I have. If I succeed in kicking it, that hurts, doesn't it? If I were to then, in further anger, decide, now I'm really pissed, I really want to kick this thing, and I kick it once more. So, what is karma? At any point during that action, I could have changed my karma. Because karma means action. Karma means causality in its own way, in a kind of Eastern sense. It means action, to my understanding. If you go charging towards that stone with the intention to do it harm, or really yourself harm, because if you think about it, what are you actually doing? Are you harming the stone by kicking it? No. The point of karma is not that you will receive threefold what you've done. That's such a right-hand path kind of mentality. Karma is the idea that if you're going to kick a rock, you're going to break your foot. It's that simple. Now, there are actions, however, that we have done maybe before we are here now, before we are in the place that we're at, that are synonymous with charging towards that rock. We just haven't made contact yet, and we don't know about it. So, for example, if you set yourself up to be in a situation, you may forget that you set yourself up to be there. Just as I said before, if you're walking down a path and aren't paying attention and you trip over a boulder and it hurts you, it's not the boulder's fault for being there. It's your fault for walking the path and not looking where you're going. But you might often, in anger, try to take it out on the boulder. Karma tends to compound itself. Because as we suffer, or think we're suffering, because pain is inevitable, as we go through pain and we believe we shouldn't be suffering, because you only suffer because you think you're not supposed to. As you go through those things, you will turn around with anger and regret and shame and fierceness and probably make another mistake, and another mistake, and another mistake, and it compounds itself. So that could be one explanation for karma in a bubble universe where you're by yourself. When you add into it the big cacophony of reality, and you have all these other people making the same kinds of actions, even the idea that anything is a mistake really is bad karma. In fact, there's no such thing as good or bad karma, but in the Western sense. Even the idea of thinking that there is a mistake creates this karma. It creates this action. Because so long as you think what you're doing is a mistake, you have a tendency to rebel against it, to go against it, to try to get back at it, to reverse it, to fix it. And all of this causes more karma. So the goal could be said to completely exit karma, to leave it completely behind, to no longer participate in karma. The only way to do that is to cease existing. And the only way to cease existing in certain traditions is to recognize that you are not really ego. Ego doesn't exist. Ego is an illusion. When you recognize that illusion and can begin to live that life free of that illusion, then your karma ceases. You will ascend, you will transmutate into nirvana. Lolan asks, if you build a defective ladder and then climb up and then it collapses and you fall on your head, is that karma? Sure. Sure. It could be. Let's see, there's a couple other questions I skipped over here. Someone had asked a good question, maybe. Chthonic Tonic asks a very good question. Can we talk about the false idea that selfishness necessitates somehow the detriment of others? Culture is at its base a means of mutual selfish fulfillment, albeit twisted from that now. Yeah. That's a big, long discussion. And again, go to www.mindtheshadows.com. Look at the article on guilt. I talk a lot about the basic, one of the fundamental causes of that issue. I believe personally that there is nothing, there's such a thing as benevolent nihilism, benevolent selfishness, benevolent ego, benevolent arrogance. If you are truly out for yourself, if you're truly selfish, that actually necessitates recognizing that everybody else is similar. Because you have to understand, selfishness is one of the few universal human attributes that are truly universal. There isn't a human alive that does not act based on a motivation based on some kind of selfishness. This idea of being selfless in Eastern paradox, for example, doesn't try to teach you to stop being selfish. No, that's a misunderstanding. It teaches you there is no self. And so it gets around the problem of selfishness. It's brilliant. And it's very Luciferian. People just don't like to draw that conclusion. To recognize that you are source means you're not doing anything wrong. You are the good and the bad. You're all of these things. You are a rapist as much as you are a saint. You're just experiencing whatever you are now. You're not experiencing the racist side, or the rapist side, or the saint side. You're experiencing who you are. But you're still all of that. Christian would say that's like original sin. You should be guilty for it. Ha ha ha. No. It all balances out. But the point of benevolent selfishness is that you recognize to live your best life, you cannot do so floating in space empty. You cannot live that life where everyone is suffering around you unless you are totally without empathy. I suppose if you're a complete psychopath and you have no sense of empathy at all whatsoever, zero, You're the type of person who will hurt little animals and shit just for the jollies it gives you. If that's the kind of person you are, then yeah, the selfish existence is going to necessitate probably the detriment of others. So to be fair, this is one of the reasons why I think good people don't like the sound of selfish benevolence or benevolent selfishness, because there's too many psychopaths out there who would just use that as an excuse to just do what they want. But for anyone who doesn't have that psychopathy, so anyone who's not nuts like that, who recognizes and has a sense of empathy on some level, it's pretty much next to impossible to be selfish in the sense that you're willing and desiring to hurt others all the time. Yeah, you'll still do it once in a while. Look, who doesn't have a petty whim now and then? Who doesn't, that person spoke ill of me, I'm going to curse them. Who doesn't get into a bar fight now and then? Who doesn't get into a petty squabble on Facebook and try to undermine people? Are they all psychopaths? No. Absolutely not. They just think that they're serving themselves. What they don't realize is that by doing what they're doing, they're creating karma. And that's externalized karma. When you're hurting the world, what are you doing? You're creating something, a ripple in causality that has the potential to become a problem for you. Remember what I said before about running at that stone, that boulder, to punch it or kick it because you're mad because you tripped over it. Same idea. Another way to put it would be you're so mad at someone that you pull the pin on a grenade and charge at them and hug them. Sometimes our selfishness can be self-destructive. And benevolent selfishness that I talk about is the understanding that everybody has their own interests in mind. But they also recognize that if they don't consider other things and their needs and their desires once in a while, that no one's going to care about them. It creates a reciprocal problem. I don't want to live in a world where everybody murders everybody, because then I've got to constantly be fighting off murderers. I don't want to live in a world where I have to worry about my kids being raped by people because rape's fine. Right? So I'm going to have to say, no, I'm not going to rape. I'm not going to be that guy. Not that I probably have to try. It's not really in my chemistry to be that way, but you get my point. People will resist doing things because they don't want to live in a world where those things are normal. Isn't that ultimately selfish too? In a way, in a manner of speaking. But it's benevolent selfishness. It is for your own good. And if you identify as the source, then you also identify that if you do good for others, you're doing good for yourself as well. It's a long step away from the right-hand path justice system. It is instead the difference between do as thou wilt and do as they wilt. Do as thou wilt is the whole of the law. Love under, or will under love, love under will, whatever. Whose love is that? Who are we loving? Who's that love that Crowley was talking about? What are we supposed to love? Love under will. Will under love. I forget how it goes, but you know what I'm talking about. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about your heart chakra, probably, for one thing. What is your passion? What is your love? What do you love most? Ultimately, if you're honest with yourself, it's probably you. It's how others make you feel. We generally don't love others. We love how they make us feel. And that's not to say it's all negative and evil like that. But if we don't admit that that is at least possible, how can we truly be selfless in our love? Even the idea of loving someone without being loved in return is a selfish idea, because you're doing it because it makes you feel selfless and awesome. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. Roll with it. In fact, take that all the way. Take that as far as you can take it. Say to yourself, Let's go back to the Bible again. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. And let's take that line and remember what I've been saying a lot lately. Take the word God and insert source or self. For I so loved the world, I gave my only begotten Son. For I so loved the world, I gave myself. For I so loved myself, I gave myself. For I so loved I, period. It's kind of like algebra, isn't it? We can reduce it down to its fundamental meaning. For I so loved the I, that I, the I. Because even the Bible will tell you that all are of God and all are within God. It's ultimately monist and pantheist. All right, let me scroll. I'm missing some stuff. So here's the problem, I think, is a lot of people just assume that the left-hand path is all about evil, and it's all about doing evil, and it's all about breaking rules. And what if I told you the left-hand path doesn't mean that? It just means that it's okay if you do. The left-hand path is not about evil. It's not about black magic. The left-hand path is about a kind of spiritual independence. It is the desire to never fall on your knees in worship that is not somehow equal. I know Chthonic Tonic and I had a fun talk about that word. But to be fair to him and to that conversation, let's be clear. If you're kneeling and there's a mutual respect going on, all's good. But if you're worshiping, if you're falling down in worship of a God and it doesn't reciprocate, what are you really getting? Christians have turned that love of Yahweh into a one-way street. You're only supposed to love God, and if you're lucky, he'll reward you. Left-hand path is pure freedom. That's right, Dia. 100%. It's pure freedom. That doesn't mean you're free from responsibility, however. That's your karma. You are free to do as you please. But if you were not also free to experience repercussions for that freedom, what does that freedom mean? What's up, Nina? My other mod, what's up? I saw your little video. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but you were going to get like a new thing for your channel, a new channel intro. If I might recommend, if you're not sure how to do video editing, I use something called OpenShot Video Editor. It's free, and you can splice anything together you want. It's really easy to use. So I'll write it down here for you, Nina. There you go. I see all, right? Yeah. I don't know. What's Loiter's still got a problem with Becca. What's Becca doing now? I don't mind people cracking a little jokes. I mean, I think I can usually sense when someone's a real jerk. My question was for D.H. Thorne. I wanted to know what your take on throwing bones was. Do you find it useful when you work with goetic demons? I didn't say I wanted advice, I meant perspective. Well, just like any kind of medium tool, whether it be cards or bones or dice, you are using them not to tell you the future. You're not using them to make things a certain way. You're not using them to be anything more than a gateway for your own intuition to kick in. If you draw your tarot cards, let's say tarot and bones being synonymous here in this perspective that you asked for. When you draw your tarot cards, each one of those cards represents an archetype of human experience. And you are not meant to just flip the card over and then go based on memory what it's supposed to mean and just recite that. Those cards are meant to be a gateway to a deeper intuitive understanding. Sometimes what's on the card, and I'm talking about the cards because I don't use bones, but I'm using them synonymously. Sometimes there's things about the cards that speak to you. The way it's drawn, things like that. The way it lands, if it jumps out of your hands when you're drawing. There's a lot of potential information hidden in there. Same thing with the bones. If you're using bones in divination, you probably are using them because you want a more simplistic message. See, the problem with tarot is they're filled with so much information that you can kind of get distracted by all that extra information and get cluttered, and your own intuitive powers turn off. This is why there's so many shitty tarot readers out there who don't, instead of relying on the tarot to give them the answers, they should be relying on their own intuition to know when the cards are full of shit. When you use bones, I think you have less symbolism to go by, and you're more inclined to just read them as same thing as runes, kind of. I'd probably say they're closer to the runes, really. But again, I don't work with bones, so if my answer doesn't satisfy you, that's probably why. It'd be really nice if you did. I don't know if you're talking to me, Caroline, but if you are, that was a great timing. I should work with bones or something, right? And if that wasn't directed at me, it should have been. Because that timing was perfect. So when I'm doing a reading, let's see. Yes, I feel stronger vibration with bones than cards. The connection seems more organic. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think for some people that's going to be 100%. If you do read my book, Become the Maelstrom, when I get to the tarot section, I am not a tarot expert by any means. There's people who would forget about it. They would demolish me on their knowledge of tarot, okay? But my understanding of tarot is that the cards themselves have no power at all whatsoever. They're printed somewhere in a factory by a bunch of sweaty sweatshop people. Thank you, Cathonic. I'll talk to you next time, brother. Have a good rest. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. These cards are printed in a factory by sweaty people, maybe even in a sweatshop. People who are like spitting and cursing over them. People who they're just watching the machine run. They just want to go home. A lot of shit energies poured into them when they're made. A lot. So this is why they often tell you when you get your first set of cards, you have to start preparing them. If you do a reading right out of the box, is it going to hurt you? No. I wish it was that simple. Then I could explain my cursed life up until a certain point, right? I did a reading once on a fresh pack of cards and it fucked my life up. No. But it's not going to be, it doesn't have a soul yet. As you said, it doesn't have everyone's sweaty, especially in the summer. Thank you, Juliana. Hey, it's Juliana. If I'm saying your name wrong, forgive me. Everybody is sweaty. You're very funny. But certain things are more organic because you've made them a part of you, or they were once living. They have a connection to you. There's a symbolism that means something to you. The images on a tarot deck, for some people who grew up with a more maybe superstitious belief in magic, maybe they like that French, that gypsy feel of cards that they have. For those people, there's an organic feeling there as well, and there really should be, because those cards were created based on the archetypes of human experience. And Nina's right, your cards have to be cleared somehow. Some way, there's always a ritual that should go into using your cards. For me, it's very simple. If I'm really doing a good reading, I will take a moment and clear my mind. I will, in my imagination, travel to the astral abode of Malphas, who I use for most of my readings. And I go to this place that looks like a clearing in the woods in the middle of fall or early winter. And there's a pale stone in the middle of this clearing. And it's a big stone. It's an altar stone, like something you'd see in Stonehenge. And I know I'm not ready until I literally hear in my mind the sounds of innumerable crows cawing. All different kinds of caws. The ah, and the ah, and all the little things that they do. And then I will look in the environment for President Malphas to be standing in that environment. Usually he appears big 12-foot tall humanoid with crow features. black wings, sometimes a skull head. I'll visualize this, and only when I feel that I'm making a real connection, a strong connection, then I'll do the rest. I'll take my cards, I'll shuffle them 3 times with a riffle shuffle, and I will keep my mind clear of the question at the time. And in my mind, that is how I'm clearing the cards. I'm deleting, I'm overwriting whatever energy got into them from my last reading. And I keep my cards handy, and I keep them in a nice box. And this box, I'm going to show it off to you a little bit. I've shown it many times before. It's a nice box I got on Amazon. And it's got beautiful red velvet. I've got a little mojo bag filled with offerings to Malphas, which in this case, at the moment, is crushed up star anise, which he loves. And then I'm just careful to use my cards properly. Some people go to the level where they won't even do their spreads unless they're doing it on a really nice cloth that is with the cards. I'm down with that. I get it. I don't worry about it. I'm like a sloppy sorcerer. I'm like one of those guys, like that meme that goes around where it's like other witches like go to the trouble of cleaning the spaces and taking baths, and I just wipe the Cheeto dust off my fingers and say, come on, bitches, let's go. I'm more like that guy. And I've done rituals in the dirtiest of places in the dirtiest of ways. So long as your intentions are clean, and when I say clean, I don't mean morally clean, but so long as your intentions are clean, and so long as you allow those cards to be cleansed through that, it works really well. And everyone's going to have their method. And Nina, I know you do a lot with cards, and as such, I'm sure you've got a really, effective method for that. I'm glad you like that meme, Becca. It's a good one. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep things sacred, right? Let's not forget that video I did a few weeks ago. You still got to keep things sacred. You just have to understand things a certain way. Yeah, Patchwork, if you bathe every time, go for it, dude. We've all got our own way of preparing. If you have read Become the Maelstrom, which of course I highly recommend, it's in the description. One of the things I talk about is living that magical life. And a big part of that is identifying what makes you feel magical, what makes you feel in the spirit at the time. For me, it is I don my vestments. I at least put on my glove or some facsimile like this bracelet. I wear a necklace, a nice one. I'll wear a ring, a nice one. I'll do my hair right. I will set up my ritual chamber. Sometimes I will leave for a little while and go back. Sometimes I go right in. But I try to make sure I am clear, top to bottom, inside and out. Thank you, Nina, for sending people my way. I am now doing rituals again. I want to let people know. However, I'm still being picky about who and why I do them. With the exception of the affordable rituals that are on my website. And the reason I'm doing that is those affordable rituals, I am not putting as much of me and my own energy and my own word into them. If I'm approaching a goetic spirit or some other spirit on your behalf, that means I better believe that you deserve their help. Because ultimately, I'm a little responsible for what happens. Either because you're going to say, Thorne, it didn't work. What's wrong with Azazel? How dare you say he was going to fix my life and he didn't? Or because Azazel is going to come to me like, yo, this person's a fuck up. I'm not helping them. So I dare not take your money to do a ritual until I know I can work with that spirit on your behalf. So I require a consult first, and that is my energy and my time. I have to be in the mood to do such a consult. I hate to sound like such a schmuck, but as the intuitive I am, I often shy away from work that doesn't sound like it's going to fit me. I am more inclined to teach you, if possible, how to do it yourself. I'm much more interested in saying, this is what you can do. Get your ritual tools, read my book, do this, do this, do this, and then get back to me and I'll tell you how you did. Because part of my goal is not to be your gatekeeper to spirituality. I fucking hate that. Part of my goal is to help you do it yourself. Even if I were to start an order, which I am now currently thinking of doing, if I were to do such a thing, it would not be with the intention of gatekeeping, but rather stages of development that people can attain on their own and may happen to work with me through it as an option, so to speak. Nothing's gate kept. I don't like that. I hate that idea that you have to come to D.H. Thorne to get the official ritual. No, that's not how I like to work things. I hate that kind of stuff. I want you to develop your own system and not need me. So when I announced that I'm doing rituals again, primarily if you're interested in the affordable rituals, go to www.mindtheshadows.com. Go to that site, the sitemap link. Go to the services link, and go through that. You'll find right at the top, if I remember correctly, the affordable rituals. It's mostly things like candle spells and things like that. Things I can pull off in 10, 15, 20 minutes that I don't have to do an all-day setup and consultation for. These are things that are basically simple spells. I still think they're powerful. For those of you who saw my latest candle spell against Derek Chauvin, those of you might be aware that either I hooked into the right energy or that was fated to happen or I caused it, one or the other. But, yeah. But again, don't use magic as the solution. Use magic as the excuse. Maybe use magic as the inspiration. Use magic as a blessing. Don't expect magic to do it all for you. You've got to step out of your own comfort zone and do what needs to be done. If I really have a problem, ironically, sometimes I won't do magic for it at all. I know it's like turns off some people. Like Thorne, if you've got, why don't you do magic for everything? I mean, let's be honest. I don't have to do ritual magic to go get a soda out of the fridge, but I consider even that act magic on some level. So I don't think ritual magic is required for everything, and often ritual magic works best when you're not attached to the outcome. When you're attached to the outcome, it tends to suffer. Yeah, I saw JD was having a stream. Lucas. Yeah. One of these days I'm going to have to have him on my channel. I know he's going through some shit. Somebody tagged me in something on Facebook that kind of pisses me off. And I don't really want to talk about it for his sake, but I don't know if he'd be comfortable with me chiming in on my channel about it. But, you know, there's a fucking cancel culture bullshit moving around in this world, and it pisses me off. And people are trying to use the Mercury in retrograde right now to smear people, calling them racist, things like that. And I think JD, in my opinion, I don't know JD well, so I could be proven wrong, but I don't feel JD is that person. I think that was unfair. I think that was petty. I think that was shitty. So for those of you who are aware of what happened, I don't want to tell you, but for those of you who are aware, my opinion is I think that was a petty and shitty thing to do. I don't approve of that. At least not to lay it on to JD as if he was somehow responsible. You know, people love cancel culture. They like to... if you don't like somebody, it's really easy to do a witch hunt on someone. This is why witch hunts were used. It's really easy to say someone's a witch with no real proof, just a little something. I heard them talking to their cat. Yeah, I've heard them talking to their cat too. That must be a servant of Satan. It's real easy to conflate things. And it's real easy to smear someone with a label like that. It's real easy to say, he's a racist because he was seen on a video with a guy who looked like he was a white supremacist, XYZ, double plus one, double plus good, 1984 reference for those who don't know. It's real easy to get people screwed up with that. I agree, Lucas. I think he's a good person. I'm always hesitant to say, this person's a hero until I get to know them. It's just a precaution of mine, especially in public. Listen, if someone is capable of doing what I'm doing and getting up in front of an audience and speaking their mind, blah, 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 they're obviously good at glamour on some level, right? And if you're good at glamour on some level, that means you could be a total piece of shit and convince millions of people that you're awesome. Look at what the mainstream media does all day long. Or invert that. Convince a lot of people that a good person's bad. So I don't, because I'm sensitive, I usually trust my intuition. My intuition says that JD's a good guy. Would I agree with everything he does in his life? Probably not. Would we argue about certain things? Probably. I don't sense that he's some kind of what they're saying. No, not at all. Not even the slightest. It just sounds stupid. The same thing with me. If someone came along and said, no, you're this way, whatever. If you knew me in high school, you'd know where I stand. And it's quite open-minded. I haven't changed in that regard. Yeah, I don't want to, like I said, Amanda, I don't want to talk about what's going on with him. You're interested, go to his channel, watch his latest stream. In his own words, I don't want to be in the middle of it at all. It's not my business. Except what I saw, I will openly say I don't approve of the whole thing. I think it's classless. I think it's really unclassy. But there's people who would say that means I'm defending racists or something. So honestly, I can't win except for by keeping my mouth shut, but it's not my style. I tend to speak. I've been given the ability to do so, so I do. Brent asks, if people attach to the outcome, does that create, and he continues, a personal connection, does that create a karmic reaction? So what happens is, if you are attached to the outcome, you're not letting go of the energy of the intent. The formula for magic that I have identified, phase 1 is the identification of your truest intention. What are you really trying to accomplish? How do you... Hey, there's JD now. Well, he's here now, so he can speak on his own behalf about what's going on. JD, I love you, brother. It's good to see you here, man. So, you know what? I actually felt bad seeing that you streamed, and I had said like earlier today I was going to stream, so I was like, shit, should I tell JD I'm streaming tonight? No, I'm just kidding. I want to get you on my channel one of these days. Let's get you on, brother. Let's get you on. You got my email now, so email me back. Tell me what's up. Thank you, man. Thank you. Let me go back to that formula thing. Real quick, and then I want to talk to you. I should just be like, JD, get on Skype, let's talk. The formula is you have to first identify your proper intention, and that intention is always going to be something your ego is hiding in a way. Like often, your ego tends to hide its true. So your ego is a manifestation of your intention. Your intention is to have a great experience, a blissful experience. If you've ever had a disembodied experience, if you've ever done the right psychedelics, if you've ever done, I'm sure Jay's going to say like ayahuasca or something. If you've ever had an ego disillusionment moment, either through chemicals or meditation, you guys summoned JD because someone else brought him up. I wasn't going to talk at all about that shit. That wasn't my plan at all. I respect it. I want him to talk for himself. So if you've ever had an ego disillusionment experience, you know what I'm talking about already. If you haven't, you need to recognize that your ego is the puppet of your higher self, if you will. It is a story you tell about yourself to wear as an avatar. And your ego has its own idea of what it's supposed to be like and how it's supposed to act. And when that avatar becomes convinced that it needs something, for example, sex, money, power, it will often focus on a very simplistic and centralized, focused manifestation of that need. But it will often ignore the higher need that is being expressed through them. So let's say you're, Thorne, could you teach me or do a ritual for me to make Sarah want to fuck me? What the heck are you really trying to do? Let's pare that down and pull away from that very material-based desire that your ego is manifesting. And let's pull back up to that higher self. What does your higher self want? Why is your higher self making you feel this urge to get Sarah to fuck you? And there's a million possibilities. This is why psychiatry and magic are so intertwined. Because they might as well be the same study in a lot of ways. So you have to pull all the way back through that ego complex to your true self. I don't mean your what's the word I'm looking for? Idealized self. I mean your true self behind this fucking mask. Why is that true self trying to make you get laid with Sarah? Is it really trying to make you get laid with Sarah? Does it want you to have sex with Sarah? Does it want that experience? Or does it want you to have the experience of longing for that experience? Does it want you to have the experience of trying to get that experience? What is it trying to do? Once you've identified that, and that alone, then you take your magical ritual in hand and you do it. For that intention. So that's the first part of the formula. Identify the proper intention. The next part is the proper preparation. I'm one of those magicians and sorcerers who believes that the act of the ritual does very little. Because I think that even magic ritual, even the preparation and all of it is really just an excuse to have the experience that you know you're already going to have as a higher being. Your higher self has already said, this intention is going to come to pass. Wants to hear the Sarah example again. Let's fuck the shit out of Sarah, whoever that is. Sorry, Sarah, whoever's watching who might be Sarah. We don't necessarily mean you. Or maybe we do, I don't know. Some weirdos that follow stuff that we do, right? But no, let's put the jokes aside. So, magic ritual it's a celebration of a thing that's already happening, the way I see it. When it's properly done, you won't be able to tell for sure that your ritual did it, or if it was already a thing that was already meant to be and your ritual is just a coincidental synchronicity with that outcome. If you're really doing it well, you will not have the feeling of, I caused that. It will be, holy shit, it happened? This is why in my book I point that out. I say I believe magic is best treated as a celebration of an outcome of a manifestation that's already happening. Not because you're just supposed to have confidence that it's going to work. That's such a base idea. No, it's because you need to identify that you as source has already pushed it in that direction. You've already put it that way. And your ritual is just an excuse for you to have the magical experience of it happening in a synchronistic way. Sorry, Jin. I knew no matter what name I picked, it would cause some kind of... Oh, man. So, once you've identified the true intention, and if you have identified that a ritual is what's required, because it's not always required. If you identify your true intention, sometimes all you got to do is just sit back and watch, because it's already in motion. The ritual is meant, actually, in my opinion, the purpose of a ritual is to build up and release pent-up energy. Ritual is best as like a spiritual colon cleanse. It's like a detox for your energy field. And what you do is you get a plan in mind. This is why I often recommend you learn to write your own rituals as best you can. Not to be a universe unto yourself so much. You should still be inspired by other people's work, but get out there and find the symbolism you like and spend time designing a ritual that will incorporate as much symbolism that means something to you as possible. Try to raise as much energy, not just in the ritual itself, but every day or every minute or every hour before your ritual. Whenever you come up with a new ritual, transcribe it into a grimoire by hand, as neat as humanly possible. Word for word as best you can in a way that's like your own ritual shorthand. Make that book powerful. Spend time gathering the ingredients. Don't just go, well, I've got 500 boxes of incense right here, which I do, and just keep it that simple. Well, I'll just use this incense. Okay, how can we make that incense sacred? How do we make it special? Well, we select the right one. Maybe we anoint it with oils or blood, or maybe we light it in a ritualistic pattern or something like that. We put it in a ritualistic bowl like the one I have here. But that's still just the teeny things. I want you to, from the moment you identify that intention and decide to do a ritual, to spend real time preparing for it, because that preparation is what's building up the energy that's going to be released when you do the spell. So the big day comes, you're ready to do your ritual. You sit down, or you stand up, whatever your pattern is. What brand of incense do I use? Unfortunately, whatever's cheapest, but I found that the cheapest I don't always like hem, I don't like the smell of hemp as much as I like some other brands. I think, I can't think of the name of it. I'll get back to that later. There's some that smell so much better. I got some, I'm one of those people, like, if I don't get this out of my head, I won't get it out of my head. Here it is. Satya. I like Satya. Satya brand. All right. And I'm sure that's going to make custom-made incense unhappy, poor Mary. She's been trying to get me to try her incense for a long time. I will one of these days. I have so many people trying to get me to try stuff sometime. What's up, Isaac? So, okay, back to where I was going with this. So you got your ritual all set up. It's time to go sit in front of your altar, stand in front of your altar. What are you actually doing? The point of the ritual is multiple fold. For me, the reason I wrote Become the Maelstrom and talked about the Trinity of Self is because the point is you need to align like in a form of yoga. Yoga means union. It means alignment of your true nature with yourself. It means to assume body, postures perhaps in Hatha yoga or other practices, Kundalini yoga and so on. It is meant to align your mind, body, and spirit completely into alignment with an intention and an experience of holistic self. So when I sit down and I do a ritual, or I stand up and do a ritual, part of what I'm doing is I am bringing these disparate parts of myself together and unifying them in a single act, in a single space and time that causes a singularity of intention, manifestation to happen. And that could be as simple as a candle or as big as a stadium. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring as much energy into focus as I can. Think of it like a trampoline full of balls and pellets and BBs and marbles. And then they're scattered all across this big trampoline. Every moment leading up to the ritual, I'm pulling down on that trampoline a little bit more, and then I get into ritual. And I've got that trampoline pulled all the way down, as far as I can go. And all of those marbles are coalesced into this one point, this small little space. And then I let go. And this catapults those marbles into the air. And I can aim the trampoline where I want it to go. Well, that's basically what I'm doing, is I'm gathering as much of this energy as I can. And then in the process of ritual, I'm releasing it. The other way to think of it would also be I am in my own awareness, I am looking for, because I'm supposed to be visualizing my outcome, right? A good magician during ritual is visualizing at some point during the ritual, they visualize their outcome, they feel their outcome. They don't just think about it. They see it and they feel it viscerally as real. They find it. And that's the best way to describe it. They find it. You find the manifestation in the multiverse because that's what it is. You locate that manifestation in the multiverse, you become so strongly fixated on it that when you let go of that trampoline, it's not that the world is changing, you're moving. It's that quantum leap of experience. You're leaping to another universe where that outcome is possible. Instead, you can't change the world. Remember in The Matrix, and the little boy says, you can't bend the spoon, there is no spoon. To bend a spoon is impossible. It's the same thing. I cannot, through the power of magic, make you do anything. I can't, through the power of magic, make anything happen. But what I can do is I can move myself into an awareness where that outcome happens. And if I'm doing it really in a fun way, everyone will see it happen. And I get to feel like, hey, I caused the universe to change, but I know in my heart I didn't. That was already out there. It already happened. I just found it and went there. And that's what my magic is doing. So when I'm gathering all those marbles, what I'm really doing is I'm not gathering the universe into a position where I make it do what I want. Good night, John. I'm gathering all of my disparate parts into one place, and I'm letting the fuck go. And I'm letting myself quantum leap into that reality where it's true. And if you're not careful, you can bounce right back. So why does that bring us back to intention? Why does that bring us back to attachment? If you are attached to the outcome, if you're attached, see, this is why the next step after the ritual is so important. You need to completely detach from the ritual and forget you did it for a little while. The longer, the better. The more you can put it behind you, the better. The less you think about it, the better. If that means you have to go and do something completely different, do it. If that means you even have to, I'll walk out of that ritual chamber and go, magic is bullshit. It's not real. I just did a performance art. Ha ha. This is bullshit. If that's what it takes for me to forget that I did it, who cares? And then sooner or later, of course, because I'm not a robot, I will eventually remember, hey, I did a ritual the other day. Did the outcome happen yet? I would urge people not to do that. I would urge people not to give in to that, but it's going to happen. When I struck Derek Chauvin, I was totally unaware anything had happened to him or to the precinct that followed. And to be fair, I am not okay with people rioting and looting and all this shit, but a targeted attack against an establishment problem, a part of me loved that, not going to lie. And I'm not guilty of it. I don't mind. I had no idea it was going to manifest in what it manifested in. I'm not saying I caused the riots, by the way, in case anybody's watching this going, you're crazy. What I'm saying is the next day someone messaged me and said, I saw your candle spell yesterday against Derek Chauvin. I don't know if you saw this, but the whole precinct just burned down. And he's been brought up on charges. And of course, within a few days, the charges were erased. So his whole life's fucked, which was my point. Set it and forget it. That's right, Nina. Absolutely right. Adversarial says something. I will get back to you in a minute. Adversarial, if you don't mind, give me a minute. I just want to finish this train of thought. I appreciate that donation, by the way. I will read your comment in a second. So you need to release and let go of your intention completely, utterly, because if you don't, that means you don't have faith in what you're doing anyway. That means you haven't actually quantum leapt into the universe where it took place. You're still lingering in your own energy with the resonance of the universe where it didn't. You're still there. Somewhere in your heart of hearts, you doubt. It's kind of the meaning of faith, isn't it, in a way? And someone had asked, is it possible to do magic with just intention? You already are, I think. I think you already are manifesting magic just by intention right now by being here. Everything is a sigil. Everything's a magical ritual if you understand what these things are in the first place. Every moment of your life from birth to death is an offering unto yourself. Because you don't ever die. Okay, let me get back to Adversarial Self. Adversarial Self says, meditation is one experience, but how can one experience the Trinity of Self in other ways? I mean, you can understand it intellectually. If you look at the book, I describe what I identify each thing to be. And by no means, I've said it in the book 1,000 times. I'll say it here again. Although I find that to be my most important contribution to magical science up to date, I don't think it is like a perfect model of anything. It is rather an argument, it is a symbol, it is a set of ideas that will lead you to other ideas and understandings. The only way to really work with it is to understand that you, what you think of as you, is the totality of that Trinity. But what you think of as you is just the mind. I think, therefore I am. It's just the mind. It's the self-identified self. And there is the astral world, the body, the embodied world. There is the astral, the material, the spirit, the body. There's the void, which you cannot enter as a mind. But it is the same as the holistic self described in many other traditions. The mind, body, and spirit. What could be more fundamental to an individual than those three things? And we as individual people as individual beings, as identified beings, whether we're embodied or disembodied like a spirit, we have those three aspects on some level. As a human being, you are a conscious thing which has decided to focus on a lump of flesh and say, that's mine. Your body doesn't possess a spirit. Your spirit possesses a lump of material. Your spirit identifies with that lump of material. So your mind is the process of identification. It is the process of bringing together that spirit and that body into one thing. Thingness. It's a great exercise to try to separate a thing from its ness, if you will. I've used the sphere analogy so many times I don't want to do it again. But if you hold a sphere like this, crystal ball, who knows what I'm going to say next? If you hold a sphere like this in your hand, are you holding a sphere or a blob of material that you call a sphere? And what is a sphere then? So you have a blob of material that fits the illusory qualities of a sphere, the empty, invisible qualities of a sphere, if you will. So the material this is made out of is part of the material world that we identify by taking the form of a sphere and overlaying it over this stuff. And when we do that, we get a realized subjective, objective manifestation of reality. But I can still take this sphere and chuck it behind me and not look at it and still know what it is. That is the spirit of the sphere. I can hold this in my hand and have no idea what it is, and that would be the body of the sphere. The stuff. So, do you have to meditate on it? You experience the Trinity of Self every moment of your life. The Trinity of Self is an exercise that allows you to identify the fundamental components of your experience in such a way so that you can better balance them. Here's why that's important. Most human beings, I'm going to argue that pretty much everybody here right now, probably including myself to a great degree, look how humble I am, we are not balanced beings. We exist because we are focused on our bodies. As an embodied being, our sense of mind is actually shifted towards the body, and we exist more in the material than we do in the astral. Does anybody argue with that? Does anybody here argue with that statement? Do you think you exist more in the astral right now, all the time? You live your life in the astral and your body's just the thing that just happens? No, most of the people watching this are going to say, in fact, all of you should if you're rational, no, I think that I'm a body, or I'm in a body, or something. Your awareness is focused on your bodily self, with occasional dips into the astral, right? Maybe when you're dreaming, that's always astral, right? If you're a disembodied being, you do exist always in the astral with only little dips into the embodied state. So they're not balanced either. These gods that we work with, these disembodied entities, I prefer to call non-local because they do have a body, but it's not a blob of meat. It is an energy field around us, most likely, be it light, vibration, whatever the hell. Empty space itself. So they're non-local beings. They're disembodied beings. Their body is non-local. So they're shifted as a mind more towards that astral spectrum. That's where they experience reality. So what is the objective for a truly advanced being to be? Now, the fools on either side of this argument will tell you that you should be very materialistic and believe only in science, or they will tell you spirit is all that matters, love and light, spirit, spirit, spirit. Then why does every spirit in the universe focus on us? Why do we focus on this? Why are we here right now in an embodied state? Because the goal is to be balanced and be both. To have both feet, one foot on one side of the veil, one on the other. The goal is for you to ascend as an enlightened being, a being that is aware of its divinity and is still of the world at the same time. So that one eye, almost in that Odinic idea, where his lost eye is the eye that sees spirit and his other eye sees the regular world. In a very similar way, when you have that vision, both come together as one. That is the goal. And when we achieve magic properly, we actually briefly enter that state, which is why the Trinity of Self is always in balance and ritual. The objective is to bring ourselves into a balanced state where our mind, body, and spirit are equidistant, and then they have a habit, when they're balanced, of coming together and return to source in their own way. The separation between them becomes less noticeable. You realize there is no separation. They are the same experience. They're just aspects. That's why they're called the aspect. The aspect of mind, the aspect of body, and the aspect of spirit. So when you put them into proper balance, the things that give you conflict and denial of ability to achieve goals and to manifest reality goes away. If you're a fully embodied being, you believe that magic is hard to do because you're embodied. If you're a fully astral being, you believe magic is hard to do because you don't have a body to carry out the actions necessary. Why do you think so many spirits like us to act on their behalf all the fucking time? What do you think the point of a pact is? To jerk off on a sigil and there you go? No. The point of a pact is to become their arms and legs to carry out their wishes in this world, whatever they may be. Yeah, sometimes it is a jerk off on a sigil, let's be honest. I like to be a little crude once in a while to make a point. A good pact serves their interests and yours at the same time. It's got a symbiotic quality to it. It's not just, I'm going to leave you a plate of fruit, although that can work. The best pacts require listening to the spirit, and what does it tell you to do? Is it going to tell you to go do something goofy? Is it going to tell you to do something that doesn't make any sense at all? Watch the movie Needful Things. Maybe you'll understand why. They see with eyes that you don't have. They see with those eyeless eyes. That's why so many spirits, or at least why it's so spooky and why it's so often in horror movies for spirits to have no eyes, because they still see. And they see better than you do. They're not clouded by those material eyes like you have. You have trouble seeing over the hill because there's a mountain in the way. They see you, the mountain, and the thing on the other side at the same time. So for them, saying, Thorne, do me a favor. Could you leave this rock on this fence post on the other side of town by the end of the week sometime? Please. That'll be what I want from you. And I go, oh, sure, that sounds weird, but sure. For all I know, by doing that, somebody saw that and it changed their whole day. And a year later, their whole life was different because of that. And they accomplished something that those spirits needed to happen. I hope that was a good enough answer for you. I hope that was something that you could use. Because I think a lot of people want things to be mechanical. They want things to be, here's a ritual, here's something you can say, here's an invocation, because you don't want to do the real work. Let me be bluntly honest with you. You guys want the shortcut. Dice, you're not wrong. They see the material world through our eyes in a way, but they see much more than that. They don't have the I've said this before and I'll say it till the day I die until they prove me wrong. Spirits don't see with the visceral vision that we understand. They see with something else. The Platonic form of vision. It's different. They don't see things as they look in the material. They see things as they are in the spiritual. A little different. And what they look like in the spirit is emptiness. And yet they know all. I use the analogy of a blind person, someone who has been born blind and does not have eyes. What do they see when they die, when they dream, when they do anything that would be sight-oriented in their mind? Do they have vision in their mind? Can a blind person imagine anything? And if they did, would they even know how to describe it? Because they have never had something to correlate it to in the material world. No. A disembodied being is no different. When your body stops working, what you see most likely is a memory of sight. It is not actual sight. What a disembodied spirit like King Paimon sees is not actual sight. It is probably nothingness. But it is so much deeper and truer than what you would see in your mind's eye. Because you have to understand, what you're seeing in the astral when you go there is a distraction from what they represent. It's an easy way for you as a materialistic-minded being to experience what they experience, what is there in the astral. So what do they experience in the astral? What is a thing, what does a form without substance look like? Can something be visible without substance? No, but can you still understand what it is? Yes. Can you still, if you close your eyes and imagine that ball that I was talking about before, picture this ball in your mind. You know what it is. It's a piece of labradorite in the shape of a spear. I got it in my head, Thorne. I can see it. Now make the vision go away, but still know what it is. Can't you do that? Of course you can. In fact, that's the point of no-mind meditation, is you're removing that embodied mind from the equation of experience. You're stopping the thoughts about what things are, but you're still experiencing reality perfectly. You don't stop experiencing reality just because you don't think about it. You're the space between those thoughts. You're not the thoughts. If you had to think about everything, it would drive you insane. You don't have to think about what color things are to see the color, do you? No. So, a disembodied being, what is sight to a disembodied being? What would that look like? If they never had eyes to see, what would that look like? Really, think about that for a moment. And even if they did have eyes once upon a time, let's say King Paimon, and my theory is correct, that King Paimon is King Aemon from Atlantis, and he's a disembodied ancient king, a Nephilimic being. Let's say I'm right about that for argument's sake. Let's say he had eyes once upon a time, and now he doesn't. What does he see? Does he see what is, or what he remembers sight to be like? And does he even need that? Do you need it? I love that one, Lowland. I actually sent that to my friend Johan. I don't know if he's still watching, but that was an eye-opener for him too. The dancing gorilla. Such a great experiment. So what you observe and what you see and what you experience it's pathetic, really. It's a very base manifestation of what is. You are seeing the lowest, and it's not even the lowest. Let me be fair here. Let me be honest. Reality is so infinite and vast that what you think of as the lowest is the middle somewhere else, because you can always go lower somewhere. There's always bigger and there's always seems to be smaller. Always. You're always at the center of the universe no matter where you go. Isn't that funny? And science can prove the same thing to you, because they obviously know that the universe as knowable is bigger than what they see, because they see evidence for it. And what's beyond that? Well, no matter how far you travel in any direction, you'll always be in the center of what is seeable. There's an event horizon of experience, and that's that. Thank you, Adversarial Self. Love you, brother. Thank you for coming down. People get so attached to their visceral human experience. This is why they fear death. They think that death will be oblivion if they don't have those things. It's not. Your memories aren't even necessarily what lasts in the way that you think. What you think of as memories are the dreams that replay based upon the things that you were imprinted with. Your brain accesses those engrams in your brain matter. What causes it to access it? Which part of your brain does that? How does it know to go there? Why does it want to go there? That's you. That's what you are. Those memories are something like a book. They're ideas. They're not even visual pictures. They're not memories like a recording. It's a bunch of concepts that your mind is imprinted with and returns to. And then those concepts get turned into memory. They get turned into visual memory. Think about your first kiss. What does that feel like? Are you actually remembering, like a videotape recording, what it felt like? Or is your mind replaying something that's more like a dream that's based on the facts? I kissed this girl. Her lips were warm and cool and this and that. And your brain pieces all these little details together, but it's not what is recorded. Your brain doesn't record what it felt like. It will instead replay for you the things that inspired that feeling the first time, hoping that you'll experience it again. Have you ever noticed that a memory is never as good as the actual experience? Never. And when I say that, I mean it's never as vivid. I don't mean it's not better, because a lot of times we can have memories that are, rose-colored, right? It's playing a recreation, exactly, Angry Finger. So when you become disembodied and the thing that holds your active memory, your brain, which could be thought of as like the RAM chips in your computer, when that gets flushed, what gets left behind? Well, as I've been telling people lately in my videos, you don't have to remember the events to remember the lesson. Although sometimes it helps, obviously. Your soul, whatever that is, whatever you want it to be, whatever it takes with you, maybe it does take visceral memories with it. I hope so. That'd be a lot of fun, but wouldn't that be also just another limitation, really? If you're really the source, wouldn't you feel kind of limited by being stuck in memories? Wouldn't you want to be able to forget sometimes? Plato had said that when you die, you spend 1,000 years or so in heaven, in an afterlife that's like heaven in bliss, where you are purified and you forget that you were ever alive, and then you reincarnate, essentially. And when you reincarnate, you've forgotten everything, because it's been so long. You've explored the universe back to front, up and down, left to right, every direction, in and out. You've been everything, you've experienced everything else that you've ever wanted to experience. Because in 1,000 years, will you be anything like the person you are now? In 1,000 years, what would you be like if you could be anything? Would you remember, because you barely remember being 2 years old, what happens when you're 250 years old? Do you remember what it's like to be 20? When you're 700 years old, do you remember what it's like to be 100? My guess is no. If you were an immortal soul, what could you possibly remember and retain? Wouldn't your brain be so full you couldn't contain it all? Of course it would be so full you couldn't contain it all. So you don't try. Because you also realize that your memory is not what is real. And so whatever happens after you're done, whatever happens when your body disintegrates, whatever your consciousness does next, that's the great question. What is it going to do? And I can't answer that for you because everyone's different. What could you do without a body? What do you think you should do? Isn't everything you think that the afterlife should be like based on what you think reality is like right now? Case in point, heaven. When you visualize heaven, isn't it a beautiful field filled with beautiful plants and comfort and sunny days and bullshit like that? Isn't that entirely based on an embodied state? And yet how could it be so if it is disembodied? Don't you visualize the infernal realms as fire and potentially punishment for those, not even punishment, but suffering for those who wish it, as I do? As a place where these beings go to have power and their own little dark universe that they live in? Isn't that too an embodied fantasy? So what is it really? I can't wait to experience it personally, but I keep being told that you experience it all the time. You just create a mundane wrapper for it, a vivid wrapper, that you wear. You create a visceral reality that you wear around it. I've been told that if you knew where you really were right now, you'd be amazed. You'd put a lot of this shit away. I don't think you're wrong, Isaac. I've been working on that myself. I have my own afterlife portal set up that I'm working on. It's my tower that has an anchor object, which is pretty permanent in terms of it's not easy to break down. It'll allow me to connect back to this world if I want, but let me be honest with you. When you disembody, you might not care about all that ever again. Because there's going to be kind of like 2 different kinds of people, 3 different kinds of people when they disembody. Type 1 people go, oh shit, I'm not just a body? What am I then? I can't take this, I better go back to a body. Think of it this way, for those of you who've done psychedelics and had a disembodied experience, you always come back, don't you? Don't you? You're different, but you come back, don't you? How many people have had a disembodied experience, a disillusionment experience from psychedelics or meditation, and either felt fear or alarm or an eagerness to get back to being you? A fear of losing who you were or something like that. 99, probably 95 to 99% of you have. So people, when they have that disembodied, that disillusionment state of afterlife, their first impulse is, I don't like this, holy shit, I'm the whole universe, or whatever that is. Maybe you don't see yourself as a universe, you're not ready. You'll see yourself as a disembodied thing. And you're confronted with the totality of what you are, and you go, I'm not ready for this, I'm not ready for this. And you go into a new baby or something. What that something is infinite. Will it be a human baby, a dog, a cat, a bird, a rock? Who the fuck knows? But you will return to that embodied dream right away. And Loiter says, I love the disillusion. When I had it without chemicals, I did too. But I came right back. A part of me said, not ready yet. I want to see what the rest of this guy's life is like. And I went right back into who I was. I kind of wish I had the chemical version because I want to see if it's as vivid as the one I had through it wasn't even meditation. It wasn't even actual, like, sitting in a lotus and all that. I was watering the plants at work. No, Dice, not in a video I can't. In a book I probably will. I'll probably give examples. Because it's not finished yet. It's a lifelong work. It's like building the pyramids. It never ends. It's a process. It's something you're supposed to do off and on for your whole life so that when you do pass on, your psyche will have something to attach to. Only if you wish it. But my book will explain the basics idea of it, yes. When I do it, maybe that'll be next year's book, so you might have to wait a while. Maybe it'll be the end of the year, I don't know. I got to finish the vampire book. I've stalled out a little bit because the amount of rituals I want to put in that book are more than the ones that I have prepared to put in that book, if that makes sense. There's things that I did when I was younger. I'm trying to remember how I did them. There's things that I never actually tried that I want to try first. So I want to make sure it's a good scenario. Because right now, I like the book, but I have a feeling some people... It's going to be kind of mixed. I think that's going to be a book that gets mixed reviews, to be brutally honest with you. Because of the subject matter, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be poser vampires who want it to be about one thing. And it's not going to be about that. Then you're going to have a collection of people who want it to be more about, here's some rituals you can do to act like a vampire, and it'll have some of that in there. But it's also going to be a lot about what I think vampirism really is, and how it comes to pass, and how you can interact with that knowledge, we'll say. So there's a lot of stuff in that direction. And Nina, in case I'm gone before you get back, have a great shower, and I'll see you next time. And I hope that little link, the name of that thing helps you. I hope that the open shot video editor, or whatever it's called. So, in case you heard this, Nina, thank you. You know, what is your tombstone except an anchor object for your egregore to return to this world and interact with the living? And for them to call to you through an anchor object. Isn't that what a tombstone is? Isn't that what any kind of, memorial is? Isn't that what the pyramids are? Maybe? Or were the pyramids energy generators? You tell me. I don't know. Some people get way off into that stuff. Yeah, you don't even have to be a vampire to do everything vampiric, Mr. Higglesworth. So, I'm not even giving anything away here. You can Google this and it's all over the place. Vampires are essentially beings that have, I don't even want to say a flaw, because that's the wrong word. They have a condition of their totality psychic energy body, we'll say. I keep it simpler in the book because I have to. I have to be mechanical in my wording so that it makes sense. If I said, you've got a condition of yourself which requires the technically unnecessary theft or taking of energy from other beings without reciprocating on some level, that sounds too simple. People want to hear about energy bodies. They want to hear about auric eggs and chakras and their spirit ghosts and all kinds of cool shit. So I put that in there. right? That's for you guys who need that. But to keep it simple, there's a condition of the energy body which requires you, usually because you are being fed upon by someone else, to supplement what is already normal for you to generate and experience yourself with something others generate. Now, you do this anyway. Every human being and every living thing in this world, and even non-living things and spirits that are disembodied and so on, we all exchange energy constantly. In and out, in and out, in and out. And we emanate what we don't need and we take in what we do need, and this never stops ever. Even when your body's gone, you still do this kind of thing. Because your action, your karma, you're constantly in motion. You're a dynamo that never stops. You're a singularity that's constantly spinning in every direction. So what you are is always in motion. So this energy is always going in and out, in and out, in and out. A vampiric being is a being which needs to take in more than it reciprocates out. Or it takes in a type of energy and its reciprocation out is negative in nature. A lot of people think that vampiric entities only suck. No, they blow. They have to blow. But what they blow into you is something that pumps the good back out of you. It's like if you have those old metal containers of juice and you have to puncture both sides of it to get it to pour out. It's the same idea. They can't just hold it and suck it out of you. No, they have to poke a hole and blow air into you too, so to speak. So, do you need to be a vampire to do this? No. Not even a little bit. But those who are tend to have a little bit of an advantage because they subconsciously are used to doing this already. So it's a little easier for them to pick up the basics, as it was for me. If you're already the type of being that needs to do this, then you will do it. And yes, it can be cured. Alright guys, so I think I'm losing my voice. Two and a half hours. Who's still here? Give me a shout out real quick. Who's still with me? I see 44 of you. Is JD still here? Who's still here? Dice is still here. Juliana's still here. Lowland's still here. I don't even think my wife's still here. I think she disappeared. I think she's sleeping. We lost Nina. There's Brent. There's Isaac. Who's still with me? Who wants to say goodnight? Angry Fingers here. Loiter Cult's still here. Give me a shout out in the comments. I want to see 44 I'm here's. Awesome. That's like 10 already. Hey, everybody's still here. Yeah, keep it coming. Johan's still here. Everybody's still here. Johan, you're still here? I thought you died or something. Oh my goodness. That's like, what are we getting up to? 15? I'm not counting too good. I think I double counted some of you. Camila went to sleep. She probably did. I missed that because I don't read all these. I try. Brent, if you're going on a pee-pee break, you might miss my goodbye. So in case you do, goodbye. I'll see you next time. Yeah, she needs a dream time. Actually, guys, you know what's cool is I started... thank you, JD. I started using... because I've always used mugwort as a tea or a smokable. But I actually, for the first time in my life, made a sleep pillow out of it. And I just took... all I got is this as an example, but I took one of these like little gem bags that you get, and it's a cloth one, and I just stuffed it full of mugwort, and I put some star anise and some clove in there, and I stuffed it in my pillow. Oh, she went to take a shower? No, was that? No, because Nina's not my wife. T. Camilla's my wife. Camilla's random. Just so you know, Algina. I like that. Nina's a great girl, though. She's always been here supporting and being... She asks for nothing in return. I always say, go visit her channel. I always forget to say it like a jackass. But yeah, so I've been taking mugwort, and actually this was a blend. I got it. It was called, what is it, Dream Blend or something? Bear's Dream Blend or something I found. And so I put it in a thing. I made a little pillow out of it, and I stuffed it in my main pillow. And for a guy who has sleep apnea, who doesn't dream a lot anymore, who used to dream a lot, I had at least 5 or 6 dreams that I remembered something from, which for me is unusual. So I can tell you that for me, as good as the smokable and the tea was, the dream pillow was actually way more effective. Way more effective. Way more effective. I wonder if it would do the same thing with Blue Lotus, or maybe I should have Blue Lotus tea before bed, and then I'll probably go flying. I'm such a big guy, none of these entheogenic stuff. If I ever do like psychedelics, they're probably going to have to like kill a whole cactus for me or something. It's like, take a whole San Pedro cactus, just sorry Mr. Pedro, sorry, and just grind that whole sucker up and just put a big old gasoline funnel down my throat and send me to town. Because I'm losing a lot of weight though thanks to keto, but being a big guy, my liver's huge, and so a lot of that stuff runs right through me. Doesn't do much. So you're right, Mr. Higglesworth. I already am. You're absolutely right. I used to sleep like I was a light sleeper who slept well. Does that make sense? When I was younger, you could like nothing. Like I didn't sleep through anything unless like if you walked into my room, I'd wake up. Now you could. I mean, the Four Horsemen. The best way to put it is right now a freaking a dump truck downshifting into a cement factory filled with dynamite would probably not wake me up, even if it happened right next to my bed. Because that's what I sound like when I snore. So. Yeah, it's kind of like that American Spirit thing, actually. It was called Bear's Blend, I think it is, and it's Dream. It's like a little tin. I can't remember it. I don't want to. Maybe they wouldn't like if I was recommending them, but I liked it. I used it, and I smoked it for a while, and didn't do as much for smoking. It did, it was nice to fill up a pipe with it and sit around a campfire. That was fun, and it kind of puts you into that zone state really good. But I like visions nowadays. I like having that full frontal vision quest stuff. Maybe one of these days I'll have to like accompany JD and we'll go to some offshore experience somewhere. We'll have to go have something like that. Could be, Isaac. Very possible. It's very possible. Alright guys, this is going to be it. I appreciate you all coming down. Thanks for supporting me as always. If you want to show me your love and support, just like and subscribe this video. Share it with those be responsible when you share it. Try not to send it to the Westboro Baptist Church or something. But if you like what I'm doing, share, like, and subscribe. If you want to support me financially, everything's in the description. My books, my Teespring, my Patreon. Make sure you go to www.mindtheshadows.com. That is my official blog / website now, where everything I do, and I try to upload something like an article there at least once a week if I can. Lately it's been twice a week again like it used to be. So hopefully you guys get interest in that. I do sometimes get a little political on there, so if you don't like my political views, you might want to swear off of it. But if you're able to have an open mind, I don't think you'll have a problem with it. And last but not least, I have my BitChute, which is also in the description, because sooner or later, YouTube sucks with its censorship rules. I don't think I'll ever be targeted, but you never know. I already had one video taken down by them not that long ago, so you might want to sub me there anyway. And Johan, we definitely got to have that video conference we were talking about, I think, very soon. Make it happen. So thank you, Johan, for that donation. I love you, brother. We'll talk to you on Sunday, one-on-one. All right, guys. Have a good night. Mind the shadows.